And welcome to the Big Gunner Podcast. The Eagles hammer us 38-20. Kind of expected after the 2 weeks ago, us blowing them out on Thursday night. But how this game unraveled really is the more frustrating part of being a Giant fan. And you got to start off with the horrific injury to Cam Skattebo. Well, saw it live, saw what was happening, saw his foot, walked out of the room. Just can't stand watching these injuries. Happen so often. We didn't see very rarely do we see injuries of this magnitude when I was in the 80s. So it's the contact, strength of the players, all that surrounds this. 100% chance you're going to get hurt in this league. It just happens, but it's just so unfortunate as you're trying to build a team and getting a little bit of vibe going and momentum for the season, and then you lose Neighbors in the first game that we win, and then now we lose Skattebo, probably our best offensive weapon at this point. It's just so frustrating, and Jackson Dart probably feels the same way. It's just you just can't make this stuff up as a fan. The best reality TV there is, and as a Giant fan, we've been going through this for the last 3 years after having a successful 22 in the first campaign for Dable. And, it just gets frustrating. But Eagles win 38-20. But, we'll get into the injury. It looks like the surgery went well. There's a possibility he'll be back this season. It was very serious, broken bone, tibia 2, tremendous ankle damage. Just terrible. It was very similar to the Dak Prescott injury. It happened in the Giant game a few years back. He came back. Obviously he's playing at a very high level. So we'll just hope the best for Cam and, kind of make it so we get him back. So there's a lot of positives for him in the future. Hopefully, if he can bounce back. Seems like he's got some tough grit. Seems like he's an all-time Giant attitude-wise and the way he was performing. 7 touchdowns in 8 games, pretty good record. He was an offensive force for us, and we're going to miss him. But moving forward, here we go this week. We got the 49ers, but just a little touch on the Philly game. So it's 7-7, the controversial call, which I have been a strong proponent of getting rid of the play. And basically the rule should be this. They can run that play, but you just cannot advance the runner. You cannot push the carrier. And I'm not talking about just in Jalen Hurts being a push. I'm talking about it any time. You can't lift the runner and pull him. You can't push him. I think if you get the scrums, and this goes for all of it, because the receivers come down, the linemen come down, even when the pass catching over the middle, if a tight end or receiver has the ball and they're being held up by a defensive battle, and here comes that pusher. I think if you make contact to the runner to push him or advance him, it should be a 5-yard penalty automatically. Play's dead. And not even the spot of foul. We might want to go back to the previous spot or make it 5 yards from the spot of where it happened. He's down at that point, and then 5 yards go backwards. That could be a possibility, so it's not as devastating a play. Down counts, you lose 5 yards. So if you have a first down, you might not want to hit him, because if it's 3rd and 3 and you get 2 yards past the line and you continue to advance the runner, you might get pulled back behind the first down marker. There's got to be some kind of rule instilled to do this. The basis of it is, to me, I look at it as health for the defender. These pushes in the end zone. It seems like the quarterback gets stopped, the defensive line does a good job and stuff, and then the advancement of the push kind of gets guys to be rolled up on. We saw Minnesota 2 weeks ago line up a guy sideways who just dove in front of the center and the guard, trying to take 2 out and letting the other 2 guys advance push. People are trying to come up with creative ways, but going back 2 weeks ago, to the Giant game in New York, they ran 4 plays, 4 tush pushes in a row, and it took them 4 times to get in the end zone from like the 3 or 4 yard line. They had a 3rd and 1, and we stopped them, and then they had 4th and 1, they got it, and then they ran it again, and they stopped them, and then they got it on the 4th play. So it was just kind of a thing about with the team. And the Giants do a good job. Dexter Lawrence, their tackles, big boy, Dexter, one of the best, probably strong, tough to move him around. So it kind of is a play that the Giants kind of are built to stand up to. But, boy, that play has got to go. And there's a lot of push this week for it, because that was clearly a fumble. Jalen Hurts was moving forward at the time the ball was taken out of his hands. What more do you want to do? They claimed the ref said there was a whistle. There clearly wasn't a whistle. Heard the play 10 times. The ball, when the whistle came out, the ball was already in Thibodeau's in possession. I think he was bobbling it at the time. Everything the league is saying is an excuse. They can't let in the Giant game. There was 2 times that they false started on it, where the guard jumps the gun. They have to be able to line up on angles that maybe the refs can't see it. It's clear. You should be able to review that play on a fourth down for a first down, review the play, and at least be able to pull back and say that was a legal false start and move the ball back. There's got to be something to do. But more importantly, it's the injury factor. We ran that play a couple years ago against Seattle. We lost our center and our tight end because of the pile and what was moving, how it happened. Now, granted, Philly's got bigger guys than most offensive lines, one of the biggest, most efficient offensive lines in the league, and they work the play. And the quarterback can squat over 600 pounds, so we know he's got the leg drive to make a play. But why not run the play where there's no push? So you could clearly run. Tom Brady, there was no tush push, and Tom Brady was one of the great quarterback sneakers ever. He very rarely got stopped. He knew how to slide in the midst of the guard center position and would kind of find little cracks in the defense and dive forward. He was one of the best sneakers in football I think I've ever seen. Go watch the videos; they're all over the place if you want. All Patriot games, and you'll see how good Tom Brady was at it. But this play has to go. I voted against it. I was a big proponent talking about it. I just think from the injury factor and the fact that now the officials are having a tough time officiating and that blunder, because that changes the game. If Thibodeau comes out of that play without possession, Deontay Banks has got the ball and he's running for a touchdown because probably Philly stops. So we change the possession of that game and we go down 14-7. And then what happens is the Skattebo injury comes out of the next possession after we're up 14-7. And I think after that, put out at halftime betting Philly, you just knew that the sideline, the kid was such an important cog in our team. And I'll tell you, rookies never assert himself when I was there in '84. And I think it's hard for them to assert themselves today. But these two kids, Dart and Skattebo, were getting it done with this team. And I saw highlights of sideline interaction with players where Skattebo was going over and pounding guys that were 5, 6, 7-year vets. You didn't see that ever. And I really think he brings a vibe to this team that this franchise needed. I think it's a devastating injury. I know this is going to sound crazy, I'm about to say. I think that injury actually hurts more than the neighbor's injury at this particular point because I see the positives. You go back, this team legitimately should be 4-4. If we don't turn it over 5 times, we should be 5-3 and beat New Orleans. I mean, clearly, we got beat in the Washington game. We probably should have won the Dallas game. Then we play the Chiefs and we clearly got beat in the Chiefs game. Then we beat the Chargers, so we could be 2-2. Then we play New Orleans and we turn it over 5 times, or we probably have a chance to win that game. Then we come home and play the best game we played in probably under Dable when they beat Philly. And then we go out to Denver and we blow a 26-8 lead in the final 6 minutes, and unprecedented, only 2 times in the history of the league since the merger has that happened. I think the 3,605 and now 2. And I remember watching the Monday night game where Peyton Manning beat Tampa. I think they were down 21 points late in the game and came back and won. And it's like, this just doesn't happen. So you look at that, even with that win with 3-5 playing the 49ers this week. So, I just look at this like we're not that far off. And the key component to all this is how well the offensive line is playing. I've always said this. The health of Andrew Thomas is the most important part of this team right now, offensively. He just protects the backside. He's one of the top tackles in the league, probably should be all pro. And I think what it's doing is it's giving Dart the ability to be comfortable enough to try to keep a play alive, knowing his backside is not being torn apart. I think no one realizes this, but probably people do, but I haven't heard a lot of comments on it on social media. But that backside is making him comfortable enough to move around. It has to be. There were times when he took 8 seconds before either taking a sack or throwing a ball away. The decisions he's making is still a little bit young, but he's getting there. And I think the positives are, that he's getting it, he's getting it done and he's effective. The Giants are averaging 24 points a game with him. They were averaging 17 without him. We're going to have a total of 49, almost 50 in a Giant game, which I have not seen, I think, in Brian Dable's tenure this week with the 49er game. So the bookmakers, the odds makers are all getting comfortable with the Giants' offense now that they feel they can score. We're going to need a lot out of Tyrod Taylor. We're going to need more out of Devin Singletary. When are we going to add Turbo Miller into this mix? I think maybe this is the week that maybe we get Turbo Miller to come out and play a little bit. I'm just very fascinated how good he was in the preseason. He's got a burst. He's very, very quick. I wonder what's going on, why he's not on our rosters. But, these are the things I think we can do. But the offensive line is playing pretty well. San Francisco's a little banged up. No Joey Bosa, no Fred Warner this week. Struggled last week against Houston. I think there's a very good possibility. I think we might see Brock Purdy, who hasn't played at all, which I think might be a little bit of a benefit to us. I think if we can find a way to get pressure, our offensive line is still very good. We have to find a way to get pressure. Maybe we can get Abdul Carter going. I think he's really, really close, you know. And I think we have a legit shot. I'm picking us to win this game this weekend. And then if we get to 3-6, you feel like, I'm not talking playoffs, but we feel like 500 is not out of the realm, when we see it. I know the schedule's tough. We still got to play Detroit in Detroit. We got to go to, we still got to play, the Chicago on the road next week, which would be in 2 weeks, which would be tough. But I think these are all winnable games. Maybe the Detroit game's a little bit of an ask, and Green Bay at home might be a pretty big ask, which gets us to 8 losses, which probably eliminates us from the playoff picture, which would, that's only my wishful thinking. It's not anything else. But I believe that this team is progressing and getting better. And then that comes down to what we're going to do with the trade deadline next week. And everybody wants to get us a wide receiver, and Lord knows we need one. But is that really going to be worth it? And what I just read prior to the podcast was that the Giants are being restricted to making moves. If that happens, that means Shane is out. If they're not going to let them have the ability to make a move, that tells me they don't want to risk any draft capital and they want to save it for the new regime, and that's going to happen. And if we're going to change this regime, I don't know how they could figure a way to pay them. Now with the Koch brothers coming in for their 10%, maybe they'll find a way to give us the money because they're richer than rich. But I think it's Lane Kiffin. I really do. I think we should make an offer for Lane Kiffin. He's been in the NFL once, the Raiders. He might have an itch to get back in the game, and he's got his guy Jackson Dart here. He coached 3 years in Mississippi. That would be my pick. Bring in Lane Kiffin and let's see what happens. He's got a little feistiness, probably fit well in New York. Deals with the media the way he does, speaks his mind. We don't get a lot out of Dable, when in the pressers, but maybe this guy would give us something. But that would be my pick for Lane Kiffin if we have to change. But I really don't want to see it happen. I just want to progress, and it starts with getting a win this week against San Francisco. And here's the reasons why. I think our offensive line, and there are devastating injuries on defense, we should be able to do some things offensively. Houston has been struggling. They put up 26 against them this week. I'm a firm believer of, that this team is going to score. We have, every game so far, we've had 3 straight games over 20 points, which is a rarity. 2 of the games we scored 30 in under Dart. I mean, I just think, it's better. But, again, I go back to that referees and again, the call, which I think was an important call, was the interference on Slayton. Mitchell has his jersey in his hand. Basically, he's trying to do is get him off the jersey. And as he does it, maybe he stumbles. And it looks like he's pushing him off and getting separation. Clearly, it's not. That play should never have been called interference. Way worse is not called in this league. And it took away a touchdown, and it's just, I'm tired of, watching this stuff happen in this game. But the officiating was probably the poorest officiated game I've seen in a long time, and it seemed like it was one-sided. Not that we would have won, but still it was something that I think, I thought should be addressed. So San Francisco this week, we'll talk more about it on this podcast Saturday with Bleacher Brothers. We're going to pick some games with Bleacher Brothers later this afternoon with Defo, so you can fill in for that. Again, I don't know that I would like to see them make a move and get a wide receiver at the deadline. Xavier Hutchinson from Houston is a guy I'm interested in. Why not go after Green Bay? Jaden Reed is available. He hasn't been played all year. He's coming off an injury, collarbone or broke a hard shoulder, and after he scored a touchdown in week 2, I don't know what health, but they're loaded at receiver. Green Bay last night got Watson back. I believe that's his name, the kid, the deep threat that they had who caught a couple balls. They're loaded at tight end. There might be a move to made where a 4th or 5th round pick could get us one of their guys that could come in and be a clear number 2. In the future, Melton or Reed or Doubs. So there's guys available on Green Bay. I would look at that. I like Xavier Hutchinson from Houston. I mean, there's guys that the price tag wouldn't be that big that can come in and help us. Guys probably really want to play. So I think that's it. But basically, what I think is right now is we got to get the defense going. Defensive backfield struggle. Deontay Banks, who I've been been critical of, has got to play better. I don't know what happened with the concussion with Flott. I don't know what was good our status is. We'll know more Saturday if we're getting a Debo or Holland back, but we need to get those guys back in the fold. And, and then the Lawrence criticism. Yeah, I'm 50-50 on that. He hasn't had a great year. I don't know what's going on with him. He's had a baby. Maybe it's a distraction at home. Who the hell knows? But, we're going to have to see. I don't want to trade him. I don't want to, I think what this team has got to do is maintain their assets. You can't just start being a sell-off to try to get extra picks and then restructuring all this stuff. We let a couple guys go in our secondary and brought in new guys. It doesn't seem to be working. When you have good players, you got to try to keep them. The salary cap is going to continue to raise. If there's a new TV deal there's a rumor Netflix is going to come in and take a morning package. They're going to expand the Europe and South American and European games. All this that's happening. So if they can get a complete package, that's going to add another 50, 60 million to the salary cap. You don't need to worry about all this. But, Brian Burns having a spectacular year. I could see the positives with Carter. Thibodeau's been more effective. Darius Alexander's starting to play a little better. We just got to get it in our back seven. These are the guys that have to play better. And I think, we got to figure a way to stop people. But this matchup this week is not a great offensive team. They have an unbelievable back, some good tight ends, decent at wide receiver. Their line's okay. I mean, this is a game we can win. We're 2.5-point underdog. I'm going to pick us to win the game later today and over the weekend. I just think this is a game that, the line's telling you that we have a shot. That San Francisco winning record is not a 4.5-point favorite with our banged up team. That's why I look at it like they're telling you that the odds makers are saying the Giants are going to be in this game. So, real quick, talk about the baseball. The other night, watched all 18 innings basically. What a game! The Dodgers now at 2-2. I think I'm going to throw it out here. I think the Dodgers win tonight with Snell, but I think after that you might be able to bet Toronto to win game 6 and 7 in Toronto. It'll be Yamamoto, who was great, but they almost brought him in on the 19th inning. He was going to be scheduled to pitch if Freddie Freeman is at the home run. Isn't that home run on Tuesday? I'm sorry, Monday night. And I thought it was just one of the epic baseball games. The bad base running and everything. Great defensive plays, a couple of great relays, great pitching. The young kick line never throws over 35 pitches and pitches 72 pitches and goes 4 innings to get the win. It was just an unbelievable game. And then last night, I kind of thought that could happen with Ohtani because he had come up, pulled up a little bit lame. It's a late game. He's on the field. It's not like he's a pitcher sitting in a dugout or he can go leave. If he's a starting pitcher, go to the hotel or go wherever he wants to go. They could say, hey, at 10 o'clock, West Coast time, hey, take off, get out of here, prepare for yourself for your start the next night. Ohtani's playing. And it looked like even though the score was 2-1 and he had first and second, nobody out when he left, the 7th inning, and then Toronto kind of put the game away there last night. It's one of these things where Snell's going to have to be better tonight. I think Dodgers win tonight, and then I think you look at it maybe a 350 plus 400 possibility, and take a chance that you take Toronto to win game 6 and 7 and take the series. Just a little out there, a little stroke of a little crazy madness, but yeah, that's something I'm looking at. But it's been a pretty good World Series. We'll be tuned in tonight to watch Snell. I like Snell first 5, and I like Snell in the game. I think he bounces back. I probably would like the under 3.5, Toronto for runs. Don't want to push it, but I do like even laying 191 here in a repeat matchup of Game 1. I kind of like I definitely like the Dodgers. All right, and then Thursday Night Football, very interesting situation. So a lot of my friends got knocked out with the over 2,000 players in Circa Survivor that got knocked out this weekend with the Bengals loss and the Falcons loss. The Falcons were the number 2 bet game. Bengals were number 3 bet game, with the number 1 bet game being the Colts over the Titans, which was an easy win. I was on the Falcons too. I thought they were one of the better bets. Way off. We didn't get a chance to put that out on the podcast, thank God. So I saved face a little bit, but I can tell you, Falcon loss was a shock, but maybe Miami gets a little bounce back here. So now you have a short week. You're probably going to face Lamar Jackson now. Baltimore gets a little bit of vibe with getting Jackson back. But I think Miami might be still. I think 7.5 is a lot of points to lay on the road. The road dog has been winning. It has been covering in this spot. Again, the travel, the short week, the disadvantage of traveling. Miami getting that little momentum with Atlanta. I kind of like I'll take a chance that the Dolphins stay within the 7.5. Baltimore's defense, a little better in the last couple of weeks, has been vulnerable. They're getting pieces back. I know they missed a guy in the middle, but we'll see. But I'm going to take a chance and go with Miami on Thursday night. I'm sure Jeff and I will talk about it. We'll be on with Defo tomorrow morning, and then back with you Saturday for our usual new Saturday show that we'll talk a little bit about college football. We're going to wait a little bit to do the handicapping till then. I'm going to pick 5 games later today. You'll get to hear them with Jeff, all NFL, all spreads, basically setting up for the Circle Millions contest, which we're going to get into next year too. So till Saturday, go Big Blue, and let's try to keep our heads up. The injury bug getting us now. We've been pretty good for a while. Love the way the offensive line's playing. Seeing a lot of progression out of Carter. Love what we see out of Dart. Trying to win games like this so we can avoid a regime change. Keep an eye on the trade deadline. If we don't do anything to increase, if we win this game and the Giants do not make any trades or don't make a move to get help the receiving core because you're trying to help a young quarterback, I think that's signs the end. That could mean the end of this regime. I also think one of the great important trades, we know we got Dexter Lawrence's trade, but I never could understand trading Odell Beckham to Cleveland the year you draft Daniel Jones. The reason why is I think when you're getting a young quarterback, you need as big assets the way the game is today, in the receiving core. Remember that Joe Burrow was there with Cincinnati. They already had T. Higgins in place. They ended up drafting Jamar Chase right after that. Look at where Joe Burrow's development did. He's taking his team to a Super Bowl. I just think we need a little bit of a wide receiver core, and we'll see what happens. But I think there's guys available for a late round pick that can come in immediately and help and add. That we missed Darius Slayton in the last couple games, and we obviously know what happened last week with the penalty. That would have been a big day for him. But love what we're seeing out of Dart. Giants are getting fun again. We'll be a lot more fun with Skattebo. We're praying for Cam's recovery, and we'll see you Saturday. And go Big Blue.